The War of 1812 had a huge impact on Canadian history. When people think of the War of 1812, they generally don't think of the Southern Georgian Bay region. However, this region had a huge impact on the war, from the relief of the Michilimackinac, to the sinking of the Nancy, to the post-settlement that happened afterwards. This region was defined by the War of 1812.
The Southern Georgian Bay region is pivotal in the history of the War of 1812 and indeed our own creation as a nation.
Historically, there were some significant Indian involvement from this area, particularly the chiefs. Chief Meskwaki or Yellowhead was distinguished at the Battle of York. We also had Chief Assange, who was from Beausoleil. He was probably very young. I would say he was about 16, 17, and he was training to be a warrior, but eventually he became chief.
Because of the Battle of Lake Erie at Put-in Bay, the British Navy lost that particular battle, and as a result was trying to rebuild its facilities and resources on Lake Huron to stem what would be an attack by the Americans in 1814.
A lot of the communications started coming up Yonge Street in order to supply the men at Michilimackinac. The major supply route was going from Fort York all the way up to the Upper Canoe Landing, which isn't far from here, across Lake Simcoe to the 9 Mile Portage, up to Wasaga Beach, which at that time became Schooner Town, and then on to Penetanguishene.
The beginnings of the city of Barrie began with the development of the 9 Mile Portage route, which is terminus or exit or entry point right here on Lake Simcoe.
The Fort Willow Conservation Area was at the northerly end of what's now known as the 9 Mile Portage, what once was a major transportation route for our Aboriginals hundreds and hundreds of years ago, and of course it turned into a major transportation route for soldiers, fur traders, etc. And thus we ended up with what's known, I guess officially known as the Willow Creek Depot, which was a military depot during the war for largely the Royal Newfoundland Regiment, who headed north from here down the Nottawasaga River to Wasaga Beach.
The Nancy was a fur trading vessel that was pressed into service and became involved in the war. And on August 14th, 1814, it became trapped in the Nottawasaga River. And despite the great defense that Lieutenant Worsley and his crew put up, in the end they were outnumbered badly by 3 American ships and 500 men. And the Nancy was destroyed as a result of that battle that took place, burned to the waterline, and sank into the river.
This area includes the last hostile action of the war on the upper Great Lakes, the capture of the Scorpion and the Tigris. All happened through a relief of Mackinac that came through Fort Willow, through Southern Georgian Bay, off to Mackinac Island. Without that action in 1814, we would not be what we are today. That preserved what was then the Northwest and is now the province of Ontario.
One of the most important things in the War of 1812 in this part of Ontario is the construction of the Penetanguishene Road. It was the supply line to the naval establishments being formed and created at Penetanguishene.
Discovery Harbor connects to the War of 1812 because it was the original naval base built in Penetanguishene at that time. And actually by 1820, over 70 personnel lived and worked here. Certainly it was built originally as part of the War of 1812, but as peace was created from the Treaty of Ghent in 1814, the focus of the base shifted to more of a defensive role and ultimately to one of maintaining the wooden world of British sea dogs and ships.
We're here in Oro-Medonte. Behind me is the Oro African Church. We're very proud of this church because it links right back to the War of 1812, and it represents the Oro black settlement that resulted directly from the War of 1812 when the militia, black militia from that war, settled here in Oro-Medonte.
The land grants that were given in Oro-Medonte there to veterans in the 1812 war, a lot of the families after the war moved to this site area in Collingwood, a Simcoe County area, and broadened out. We're linked as descendants of those veterans.
The Penetang-Machine Road, built for the military, continued as the major settlement road for this entire region.
In other areas through Southern Georgian Bay, there are any amount of links to the War of 1812 that people may not realize. Veterans of the War of 1812 were issued land grants in lieu of pensions. Most of the roads in our area, and indeed in Ontario, were surveyed because of the military. They were settled because of the military, veterans of the War of 1812. Those veterans are buried in graveyards all over Ontario, many of them in Southern Georgian Bay, in communities that have no other link to the War of 1812 and may not realize that they have veterans in their own communities from that war.
The Southern Georgian Bay region has a lot planned for the bicentennial of the War of 1812. From the commemoration of historical events to legacy projects and reenactments, there is so much to look forward to.
Discovery Harbour is planning a wide range of exhibits and activities. One of our proposals is the renovation of the North Visitor Centre for the original hull of Tecumseh. We would also like to host the tall ships should they come into the Great Lakes. We would plan a major exhibition around the role that the British Navy had in Penetang-Machine in the Georgian Bay area. One of the most significant War of 1812 activities is our ongoing work to upgrade and renovate the HMS Tecumseh that we're standing on today. Our goal is to bring it back to what it actually would have looked like when it was originally built. And to wrap up our celebration, we would like to host a very, very special Christmas event here at Discovery Harbour to celebrate the peace in our area and the continuing peace between our countries.
The most exciting part about the Bicentennial coming is that Nancy Island will have a new building to celebrate that event. We are building a welcome center, which will be an orientation center for the park and for Nancy Island Historic Site. One of the events that we plan to make even bigger as we head into the Bicentennial is Wasaga Under Siege. And that's a great reenactment event that takes place with a grand encampment on Nancy Island. There are battles that take place in the various beach areas, and by the time we get to 2014, August the 14th, which is the 200th anniversary of the sinking of the Nancy, we will celebrate that in fine fashion.
Not a lot of people know about the history of the War of 1812 here in Simcoe County. So one of the things that the Simcoe County Museum is doing along with other museums in the area is producing a traveling exhibit to commemorate the War of 1812, to teach people a little bit more about what happened in this area that will take through Simcoe County and beyond to really share our stories that Simcoe County had that relate to the War of 1812.
I'd like to think we've got some pretty ambitious plans for the Bicentennial. An educational pavilion. We're now seeing some curriculum-driven programming going on out here, so we're seeing students on a regular basis. They need shelter. Some accessibility projects including a trail, washroom, entrance gate, new signage. Basically, we want to be able to facilitate what we're anticipating to be some large volumes of people.
The General Hunter project is based in the fact that we found the General Hunter on our beach in Southampton. It was a warship built in 1806 at Amherstburg. We have a small exhibit now with some of the artifacts that we found during our excavations at the Bruce County Museum and Cultural Center. But it's a small exhibit, and we want to now build a major exhibit in our feature gallery. And we hope to build a portion of the ship deck from the General Hunter. We hope to also do, as a major part of it, the story of the excavation, which was a big community event.
The City of Barrie is very much working with our local planning committee and wanting to enhance the 9 Mile Portage Heritage Festival with reenactors and really enhancing that event for the year that we celebrated. We're also hoping to work with our local committee to develop an actual reenactment of the route from Claps Hall Landing in the south of Lake Simcoe through Barrie to the Fort Willow right up to Georgian Bay.
Well, we'd like to see the Penetang-Machine Road become a heritage trail from Kempenfelt to Penetang-Machine. The second element is the production of a book that we hope will answer all those important questions relating to the history and establishment of the Penetang-Machine Road. We would like to create a museum-quality exhibition on what the conditions were like and how the road was built and where it is actually located.
The Sheffield Park Museum site here is planning a plaque. We set up monuments at our site here, and we're looking at recognizing the 1812 soldiers, Captain Ronchi's Colored Corps.
We are at the Huron Lookout site. Native contribution helped secure this land. We're putting together an icon that consists of a replica of a bushback canoe carried by a European and the party being guided by an Indian. I see visions of using that particular facility as a platform for educating the general public in a neighborly fashion so we can get to know each other.
As Canadians, we're rather understated, to say the least. We don't wave our flag very often. But we have as vibrant a history as any nation in the world. We just don't tell our story very well. This is an opportunity for us to tell our story.
The next few years are going to be an exciting period for the Southern Georgian Bay region. But we're just getting started. We challenge the arts community, educators, businesses, and you to get involved in creating a legacy for the next 200 years.